Welcome to All Wheel Driven, a podcast by Audi Club North America, where we explore all things Audi and the incredible people who bring it to life. All Wheel Driven is presented by XPEL, the official paint protection film of Audi Club North America. On today's episode, we sit down with Steve Johnson, a longtime Audi Club member whose name you've likely seen in Quattro magazine and on our blog. He's the voice behind some of our most popular auction coverage, tracking the hottest listings, delivering insightful quarterly recaps, and offering regular takes on the evolving Audi marketplace. Steve also provides deep dives into Audi motorsports history with the Silver Arrow series. We dig into Audi auction trends, what's driving the market right now, and even veer into some motorsports talk with recent Audi Sport listings turning heads. Thanks for tuning in for another episode. Let's get started. Steve, what's up, man?
How you doing, Zach?
Not bad. You are the fellow auction nerd here at ACNA, so we have a lot. We could go for hours, I'm sure.
Probably.
Yeah. So yeah, I've been looking at your auction watches and the mag and the weekly recaps and everything. It's pretty cool stuff. I'm sure you're the same in our daily routines, and that you check out all the sites, the results, what's new, what's been posted, what's coming up and ending, and how things go. But I definitely don't follow the data as closely as you, because I look at literally everything beyond just Audi. So it's like impossible at a certain point. I'm just looking at what cars are cool and coming back and seeing the action when they start to close. But yeah, would love to hear, like, how did you catch the auction bug? Like, what's your story with that? Is it something you've always been pretty active in yourself with your own cars and stuff?
No, it goes back to Quattro magazine meeting in late 21, early 22. And George was looking for a new thing called, Auction Watch, or looking at auctions. And, I wasn't terribly busy at the time, so I said, well, I'll take a crack at it. He wanted to do a daily or a weekly blog, and he wanted to have it in the magazine. And I said, sure, I'll do that. And he followed up with, oh, it's my baby, which was parenthetical for don't screw it up. So we traded ideas back and forth and prototyped it. And once we got it launched, he said, here you go. And I've been doing it ever since late February of 2022.
Nice. Yeah, it's a while. So you've seen some new platform players come in the mix here with some of these auctions in that time.
Yeah, well, I've actually seen them come and go.
Right.
There's probably been at least 2 websites that have gone out of business. There was one in Canada called Shift Gears or something like that. Occasionally they have an Audi, but they went away. And Dream Cars in California seems to have died. And then some of the other ones that are more international flavor, people would advertise American cars on them or Canadian cars, and they seem to stop doing that too.
Yeah.
So it's sort of necking on down to Bring a Trailer and Cars and Bids and P-Car Market and a few other ones.
Yeah, the usual players. So I don't know if we covered this, but I used to work at Cars and Bids.
Yes, yeah.
In their period after the investment that they got, that was phenomenal, and allowed them to start doing a lot of new things they're doing now with their mobile app and everything. But yeah, so I heard always from like the team and also others in the industry that are at other platforms that it's like, for the average consumer enthusiast that's watching these sites and everything, it's like you'd be amazed how many of these just pop up seemingly overnight and just like have a little bit of like, they have a flavor of the month or something, or they have some traction because of some marketing push they do, and then it's like all of a sudden they're like, where'd they go? Like, do these sites exist anymore? Like, they get gobbled up by something, or they go out of business, or they just become a little pet project for somebody instead of like a real business, right? Because it's like so competitive and hard to differentiate in that market. There's already like too many platforms. What's your favorite platform? What do you like to use and browse? Do you have one that sticks out to you particularly?
Well, I mean, Cars and Bids, I think generally has, how to say it without picking on other websites, nicer cars, more OEM, less modified. There's a lot of cars that are modified more or tend to have more accidents. So if you're looking for a clean Carfax type of car, Bring a Trailer seems to be the place. And I think that probably has something to do with the fact that there seems to be a lot of dealers that are listing on Bring a Trailer, so there's a better level of inventory there.
I think you find a lot of it like across the board, but yeah, I agree. You'll find a lot of the blue chip stuff I'd bring a trailer generally. Um, I still think Cars and Bids has probably the best platform experience, bar none, right? Like their mobile app is pretty good. Their site is nice and modern and easy to use, and it's I think the nicest experience because bring a trailer. They're the behemoth that they are, and they're successful, so they probably don't have much of a motivation to really shake things up on the product side. But it's just like the site looks the same as it did when I discovered it in college. Like, and back then it wasn't too shiny, right? So I wonder if that'll get a fresh coat of paint anytime soon, but probably not.
Yeah, and some of the write-ups aren't the best. In fact, on RA just popped up, just before the podcast here, and it's got a really, really thin description. And I'm wondering, is that because the person selling it didn't have enough information, they weren't an Audi enough fan to know what they had? And it's hard to say much when there's not much meat to go on. You have to look at all the pictures and like, oh, I see piano black trim in there, and that's nowhere in the listing. So you
Hmm.
really have to pick through to see what to talk about sometimes.
Yeah, and I always found that challenging on the buying and user side too for bring a trailer specifically with like the blog style write ups. I just find it takes me a while to like get the meat of like what I want to know about the car out of that site.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they have the bullets on the right hand side, but like Cars and Bids, it's like the whole thing is just like the hits, right? It's like here's what you need to know about this car, just like in general in the market. Here's this example. Here's its flaws. Here's its history. Here's its mods. Here's the seller details, and it's like off you go, and that's like perfect for like the TikTok economy we are all living in lately, right? It's like bring a trailer. I have to actually sit there and like read like, okay, wait, did they mention that? Where is this? Where's that? And you have to like dig for the Carfax sometimes. So that's always kind of frustrating for me, at least.
and that's evident by the comments people make too, because
Yeah, they just missed something.
I'll read it and I'll go down to the comments, and people ask questions like, "Didn't you read the listing? It's right in the listing, but you got to be able to read well to catch everything. It's like a
Yeah,
reading comprehension test."
yeah, right. So, what are your thoughts on the Audi market in the last month, or even since the Q2 mag came out?
It was kind of an unusual 4 month period. That was the first time we ever had 4 months in a recap when we altered our production cycle a little bit. So I was able to cover bonus month February, as I called it. It was kind of a slow month for the S models and the Avants and All Roads. I lump everything together like that. There's no perfect way to lump all the Audi models together, so I came up with that scorecard the way I have it, and I've kept to that over the time. Um, it was slow for RS and TTs too, but it was consistent for all the other categories. So not quite sure how to read that for Audi specific trends at all. It's just maybe the way it went for the quarter.
Yeah, I have noted. I know what you mean, like on classic.com, which I know you're, deep into that with all the trends and everything. They don't have all the submarkets split out in the way that they do for, Porsche and BMW, right? Like chassis code based, trim based, M340 versus M3 and so on. Audi doesn't really have that granularity, so it gets a little bit harder to track the trends there. Um, but I've noticed just from the bystander side on my end, like I feel like S4s have been popping up a lot. Have you noticed that like both sedan, cabs, Avants, like from various generations and chassis? I've just seen like every week there seems, especially B8s. I feel like there's been a lot of B8 S4s going up lately.
Yeah, it's probably over the last 3 years, it's probably the number one. Well, other than RS4s and R8s, it's probably the next biggest one, along with TTs. Sometimes I feel like I've seen every S4 in America sell, and you're looking at, wait a minute, I've seen this car before, and but half the time I'm right, and I'll find it. But I always try to include that in the description on the weekly blog post that this car sold on X platform for Y dollars, just to let people know that this car's been here before, and here's what it did. But yeah, S4s, they've been out there, and that's one of the things I do for the recap in the magazine is I'll look to see what was really hit in this quarter, and I'll look at that, or look at something I haven't looked at yet. But and if you go back a few issues, like in the last year or so, you'll see I picked on the B5 S4, the B6 S4, something like that, or the Avance versus sedans. That's because they were trendy at the time.
Do you feel like there's a particular model that would be getting more attention if there was just more of them out there. Like I kind of wonder about that sometimes with B5s, right? Like I feel like so many of them had, ugly crash history or something, or got modded to hell, or who knows, right? And I feel like even just A4s, right? Like you never see, at least by me, I never see B5 chassis cars at all, let alone the S4. And then of course the RS4 is now becoming legal to import. But I wonder about that sometimes. Like if some of these cars were preserved a little bit more from the start, would we see them blowing up a little bit more in the auction scene? Because like you kind of get that a little bit more with other brands that maybe had that longer tail of like performance lineage that Audi didn't necessarily have until like the 2000s, frankly, right? So it's like people were preserving like the earlier M cars and earlier Porsches, of course. So like, what's a model like that like am I right on that with the B5? I feel like that's one of those that must be like if people kind of recognize it a little bit more for what it would be seen as now at the time, we would see them transacting more and maybe at a higher rate.
Yeah, if you see B5s out there now, chances are that half of them have mods. Not that that's a bad thing, but it might come down to age, and it's easier to actually buy, your KW coilovers than it is to buy the standard OEM suspension, things like that. So, you almost are expecting to see various items on every B5 modified. But you're right; they're long in the tooth. They're high mileage. You hardly ever see B5 A4s, but when you do, they're usually pretty nice. So every once in a while, a real gem comes along that I call it somebody's baby. This must have been somebody's baby because it'll have just the right mods and it'll have well cared for interior, which is the other thing that really you got to look at as soon as you look at a 20-year-old Audi is like the radio buttons
Oh
on a
yeah, the
TT.
button finishes that are fading and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. That Audi concert stereo in a Mark One TT. It's like, did people have sandpaper on their fingertips when they were accessing the buttons? Because they'll just wear those things right off.
I think that was like a gentleman's agreement across the German brands at some point because like I used to work at Audi and Benz dealers and had so much time spent behind the wheels of many of those cars, and like they all had the same problems with the center console buttons, with the steering wheel buttons, with the dash buttons, where it's just like the frequent touch points were just rubbing away with relative ease, like even not super high mile examples. And so like you, I'm sure now, everyone knows when you get into one of those that has had multiple owners, like you're looking at those buttons because you can't really do anything about them other than flat out replace them, which no one's really going to bother to do as long as they're working. Um, but yeah, it looks horrible most of the time.
Yeah, and you get to the point where people have slapped in a different head unit. Like, well, there's your fix. Put in a new head unit, Pioneer or somebody's like that, just to replace the radio with something aftermarket that's got Bluetooth and upgrade the interior a little bit.
Yeah. What do you look super closely at modded versus unmodded market comparisons? Like month over month, if there's modified TTs, tuned TTs versus non, do you look at that closely to compare how they trend?
Sometimes out of curiosity, yes. In fact, I looked at the RS3s today, and of all the RS3s that sold since 2024, it was 10 modified versus 13 stock. And I thought that was that's a pretty large percentage of modded. And about half of those that had been modded were serious mods, like the from last week's 900 plus horsepower stage 2/3 build on the blue RS3 that was out there. There's been a few of those within the last probably 6 months that were advertised at dealers, and they all sold. Of course, when they're advertised at a dealer, you never get to see what the final sales price is, unlike on an auction website. So you never know if they really commanded the money that was invested in them. But I suspect not, based on years of watching Mecum auction. When guys will do a custom build, maybe they'll get 30 cents on the dollar back out of it because they customize it for themselves, and they just you're just not going to get that return unless you find the guy who wanted that thing that you liked as well.
Yeah, I mean, with the auctions, for all the reasons you just said, it's so tough. Like when I speak with people through my other like consulting business with auctions, that have modded cars that are to a point, like I almost don't want to touch them myself to help them with the auction because it's going to be a losing battle, right? Like I, I mean, you don't know for certain. You can't predict every outcome of every car in every auction, but it's just so tough, right? Because I always just view it, and I can relate because I'm a big stock preference kind of guy with my cars in general. Like I want the experience to be as close to, if not exactly, what it was leaving the factory. And I feel like with the auction cars, it's like you got to hope there's at least two people in the room on that given day that don't want a TT or an RS3. They want your like specific creation or formula for that car and what you thought it was going to be at the time, and maybe your taste has changed. So now that formula you used or that build you had is, I don't know, maybe less relevant, or like better solutions have come out, or better suppliers have offered a similar approach to that build. So it gets hard, and then it's always like the tough battle with people where they're like, oh, I sunk 50, 60, 70K into this build, and like people respect the dedication and like the expertise, especially if they're doing a lot of it on their own. But it's like, man, you're not gonna like you got to go into it realizing you're very unlikely to recoup that investment.
Yeah, especially when you see it on an R8, when you see a twin turbo R8 or an R8 with a VF Engineering supercharger on it, and they're kicking out 700 to 1,000 horsepower. Boy, you launch that motor and you blow it up,
Yeah,
cha-ching.
I mean, at that point, it's like not. It's like hard for me to even feel like I'm buying an R8. You know what I mean? It's like I have respect for like those crazy custom builds and the stuff you see at SEMA and whatever, but like it doesn't feel like it's the car anymore, right? It's something completely different. Like you have a twin supercharged, twin charged, whatever, and it's like you know what I mean? Like it's not the experience. It's something else.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it's somebody sunk a lot of money into it, and well, I hope they find somebody who's gonna enjoy that horsepower and buying new tires as much as they did.
Yeah, and then it's like I feel like even once you do find that buyer, it must be kind of overwhelming because you don't have like you hopefully have the documentation and the stories from the seller, but like you don't have all the context of like everything that was done to that car, what its like shortcomings were, what the like challenges were, things that I'm frankly not experienced in even navigating. But like I would just feel intimidated if I came into a car like that, where it's like I would feel like I'm walking on eggshells just trying to like conduct the basic maintenance because of all the tunes that it might be layered into and everything else, right?
Well, that's a very good point. No more than 2 or 3 weeks ago, there was an S4 that was modified, and the guy who's selling it didn't have any documentation at all. And so it's got a mystery tune. It's who knows what's really on it. Who knows the maintenance that took place from the other guy, because he was probably handy enough to do the maintenance himself because he was driving a modified car. So are you going to be driving a Grenade, or are you going to be driving something that was well maintained? Yeah,
Yeah, stay away
not
from
quite
that, in
sure.
my opinion. Yeah, I wouldn't want any part of that. Do you feel like there's exceptions? Like, I know this is maybe less popular or comes up less here in North America, but like for Audi, of course, like opt tuned, not just opt like original opt vehicles like an R6R, but like opt tuned Audis, like when there are the modified vehicles that are basically given like a package that's like kind of a verified, like, hey, this is a dynon tuned Beamer or like a Porsche with a demand motor or an Optune Audi. Like I feel like that is a nice way to bridge the gap if you are into mods and also like still not get totally cooked on the secondhand market, because it's like you're carrying still an aftermarket tuner company at the end of the day, but it's like got that reputation of like they've worked, if not directly partnered with this brand for decades on every car or near every car. And now you can, get into that if perhaps you already wanted to like purchase that package and take your Audi to opt, right?
Yeah, I actually met them at the Audi National. Was it 2 years ago? I guess down at Fontana Village in North Carolina, and I bought a little carbon fiber shifter cover for my Q5.
Oh, so when you sell it, it's opt tuned, right?
Yeah, it's right. I hot rodded my Q5, but the RS7Rs that they created, they're phenomenal. and they go for good money. We've seen a couple of them, I think. There was just an SQ5 with a wide body kit about a month ago.
On
I
Cars and
don't
Bids,
remember
yeah, I
what
saw that one. Right, that was also the gray one on Cars and Bids.
Yes, yeah, the gray
Yeah,
one, yeah. Offhand, I don't remember what that went for, but that looked like a good build.
yeah, that was an Optune car.
It was a wide body kit, and I think there was some engine tuning on that as well, but I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I'll have to go check that one out. But yeah, I remember that RS7R. It was on Break Trailer, I think, right? I think they also had an RS6R not too long ago.
Oh boy, you caught me flat-footed on the RS6R, but the RS7Rs were the like a 2021 build, I believe, and there was a limited number of those. And yeah,
Yeah, I see it here. It
the
actually
joke was
it
count the
didn't
number of
sell.
times it said Opta throughout the car, and the inside and the outside and the carbon fiber bits. It was like 30 times.
Yeah, they've got extra quattro badging and everything on it too. Just yeah, a little bit overboard. That actually didn't sell. It bid up to 90K in October out of Florida. But yeah, one of 125 of the RS7Rs. What do you think is coming up in the market with Audis? Like, do you see signs of anything that's getting sudden appreciation that's been kind of underappreciated or just not popping up on the marketplaces in general?
I don't really see any models that are taking off, with the possible exception of the R8 V10 manuals. They seem to be catching fire, and I don't know if that's a sign of springtime with the spring bump, or is that just something that everybody says, well, they're not making them anymore. So if I wanted to have one, I better grab it now. And of course, it's the Type 42. The manuals are nice. I've never actually driven one of those, but I don't find the S-tronic to be that nasty of a transmission. It's not like the R-tronic was. So I wouldn't mind either way. But again, I looked at today. I looked at the price differences between the manuals and the S-tronics, and the manuals were carrying a clear premium, but they also seem to go hand in hand with low mileage. So, didn't anybody actually enjoy their six-speed manual? That's a travesty right there.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the R8s, I love pretty much all generations of the R8. I mean, of course, the gated first gen cars are super special to be able to get that experience with a V10, but um, even the final model year ones, like I really like, and I wonder now that they have officially been out of production for a few years, a couple years, with rumors yet to be explicitly confirmed that it's returning as a Temerario partner, right? So I think about is the R8 gonna stabilize a little bit more, if not even maybe see the later gen second model cars retain value and lower their depreciation curve a little bit because people are now like, oh well, because for so many years the R8 was just there, right? It's continuous production year over year, pretty much from 2008 until 2023. So it was just sort of like, yeah, it was the Halo Audi, but you always knew there was going to be a new one coming. They're going to keep refining it. That's no longer the case now. So I wonder, like, are enthusiasts looking at it like, oh, you know what? Like that V10 supercar Lambo in a suit that we used to have is pretty sick. Maybe we should scoop one up.
Yeah, yeah. The newer ones, like, well, the 2017 onward, we see those less frequently than the older Type 42s, but R8s, at least the older ones, I was thinking that it's almost like a commodity. When you see one that's only had two owners, it's rare. When you see them that have six owners and they really haven't had a good home for 3 years because they've been going from dealer to someone who bought it to put it on a consignment to try and make a buck on it, yeah, they're popping around so much that I don't know if the real driving enthusiasts are latched onto them, or if people are seeing them as a way to make money. Um, the newer ones, the if there's one that's like a three or 4 years old, pop up the limited edition models, the plus things like that. probably going to mispronounce it, the Cenium, the one that was made for the
Oh
special
yeah,
edition.
the decennium or whatever for the 10 years of R8. Yeah, that was a cool one.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, those special editions will probably always hold their value, if not gain value. But yeah, it's almost like someone's commoditized R8s, and they're not driving them the way they should.
Yeah, I mean, like outside of like the really well kept manual cars, I definitely am seeing like that with the early first gen, like the V8s and even some V10 Spiders that are up there in miles, maybe owners, maybe some Carfax, hiccups in their history, and now they're getting into that like what I call like the fourth and fifth owner danger zone, right? Where it's like they're getting cheap enough and attainable enough to like the owner who's I don't know, don't want to generalize too much, but like maybe not a true enthusiast. They want something flashy. They've seen R8s. It kind of has like the allure aesthetically as like, a McLaren or something like that. And they're like, oh, it's 60, 70K, like count me in. And then a lot of them get modded, maybe not necessarily cared for in the best way. And then you end up maybe in 3, 4 years down the road, some ratty R8s coming onto the market. So we'll see.
Yeah, that sort of reminds me of Alex Van Halen's was on the market about a year ago or so. It had a wrap, it had various mods, and you could tell the person who owned it, who was like maybe 2 or 3 removed from Alex, really wasn't caring for it that well. And you just have to go like, wow, that's a shame that a car that was owned by Alex Van Halen
Yeah.
wasn't cared for the way it should have been.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of All Wheel Driven. If you're not yet a member of Audi Club North America, we invite you to join the largest community of Audi owners and enthusiasts in the world. By joining the club, you'll elevate your Audi owner experience with benefits that quickly pay for your membership, including up to 6% off MSRP on any Audis, new or leased, a quarterly print edition of our Quattro magazine delivered straight to your mailbox, exclusive events and educational opportunities like high performance driving programs, social gatherings, and international tours. Premium discounts on top tuning brands like 034 Motorsport and Integrated Engineering, comprehensive insurance coverage and savings from Amica, Haggerty, and Lockton, plus many other benefits. Whether you're looking to sharpen your driving skills, save on trusted brands, or build connections through one of our 32 regional chapters, Audi Club offers all of this and more. Join us today at audiclubna.org and become part of a community driven by a shared passion for Audi.
A couple weeks ago, we had the 1992 Coupe 2.8E that was
Oh
called
yeah,
Fraulein Lisa.
that was so cool.
Yeah, I mean, that was owned by an Audi aficionado for sure, because anybody who has a 15-page book that they created, 3 manuals, and all the other documentation that went into the build and replacement engine, all that, they cared for that car so well. I mean, that's so rare, but it's so what you want to see. You want to see that documentation, and even if it's got high mileage on it or total mileage unknown because it's now got a new engine dropped into it,
Yeah,
you want to see that trail that's where it's been cared for.
yeah. I mean, the TMU is like irrelevant at that point, right? It's like you know everything you need to know about that car, and it's a find another moment, right? So, yeah, that was really cool, and you knew quite a bit about that one. So I actually wanted to I have it up, and I wanted to learn a little bit more about that listing. It's basically a Euro market S2 clone build, right? Is that the high level of that car?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure what the E designation brought into the mix,
Yeah, I
but
wasn't sure about that either because the 2.8 that was like the highest output for the regular coupe, right? Before you got to the S.
well, yeah. Well, then they with the when they dropped the new engine in, they didn't use the same model engine.
Mm,
They had a replacement V6 with no mileage on it from something else. So it was a target opportunity, and various comments in the listing said, "Well, why didn't you put an i5 in there?"
right.
And it's because this is the V6 we had that was almost brand new. So
What was it from?
uh,
Did they
I
clarify
don't
what it
know
was
if they
from?
actually ever said that. It was like an engine that they bought, so I don't think it came out of anything.
Basically, are those the wheels? Like, did the S2 get the Porsche RS2 wheels originally? I don't actually remember. I don't
Boy, I don't
I,
know
I
if
don't
those are stock
I
or
don't
not.
think it
There's
did, but it wears them so well.
yeah, to me, any 5-spoke is the way to go.
Yeah, and just the box flares. and they did some work on the interior too. I think like the carbon fiber and the custom quattro upholstery and some other touches that look pretty tasteful for the build. But yeah, as you mentioned, so much documentation and videos and everything. So have you yourself bought and sold through the platforms before?
No, I haven't. I have frequently thought about it, but I don't think I would want to go more than a few states away because I just can't get past that. I want to see the car, um, especially if it's something that looks good and they don't have the videos and the 300 plus pictures that I just saw another video from somebody on YouTube, some classic YouTube car talking head guy who was talking about cars online auctions, and they said, unless there's 300 pictures, that's what people expect nowadays. And that's how you can really tell if you're getting a good car, when they take so many pictures of things. So when I see a private party selling a car with 50 pictures and they're taken in the shade
Stay
and
away.
they're not really well lit and the interior pictures are a bit dodgy, yeah, they're hiding stuff. That's my thought. They're hiding something there.
Yeah, I mean it's either they're hiding or they're lazy, and then if they're lazy, you can only wonder what were they lazy about with the car itself that you can't see, right? It might have perfect paint, no rips in the upholstery, but it's like there's things you're gonna uncover that could have been prevented, could have been done, weren't done. Now they're your problem. So yeah, I mean I'm the same way. I bought my RS5 off Cars and Bids, and it was like full confidence because the seller was not only incredibly communicative throughout the whole process and all of my questions that were very not repetitive. Like I did my homework, I looked through the whole listing, so I wasn't asking stuff that I should already know, but it was like very minor detail stuff. And he was super easy to work with. And then to your point, numerous videos. He had like a 25-minute long driving video of like one of those like chest cameras that like you can wrap around your neck of him just driving on the highway and local roads where he was in New Jersey. And again, like 200 plus photos and well lit photos in a good setting, very clear. And I'm like, that's all I would ever do, frankly, with an auction, right? I'm never gonna feel comfortable, even if it's like my dream car. Maybe if it's my dream car, I will, toughen up and actually fly out to go see it if need be, if the auction doesn't do it justice. But yeah, generally speaking, like just working digitally on the auction as a consumer from home, like I need to see at least like 150 pictures.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I have a number of friends around the country, Audi Club member friends, and they don't even hesitate to reach out to people and say, "Hey, I'm looking for a TT Mark One coupe, or I'm looking for whatever. What's in your local area?" And I've gone out and looked at cars for friends, and come back and said, "No, not this one here." Or yeah, this is a possibility. Or the sales manager at the dealership has one, and right away it's like ding 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 ding. Oh, the sales manager at the dealership has a car that he wants to sell. There's a bonus right there. It's been serviced. So, but not
Hmm.
not auctions. Not well. I'm not really to add to my stable yet. So.
Yeah. So, but what about selling when it comes time to exchange something in your garage? Would you be doing it through one of the platforms automatically, or would you be considering other options?
Well, I might try the club first. That would be probably my first thing to try. Friends network, things like that. When you got a car that you've kept well, you know, the first thing I want to do is go to the community that appreciates it. So I would try to sell through the club first, and if I didn't get a hold of bites, then I'd probably try bring a trailer, and I wouldn't skimp on the pictures and things like that. No taking pictures with your own cell phone. This
No,
doesn't
no.
cut it.
Do you do the full white glove service, or would you? Are you handy with a camera, like a real camera?
No, there's actually a guy that's a sponsor in our local Porsche region that specializes in doing bring a trailer ads. So I would go to him and say,
Hmm.
hey, here's my Audi S5. That'd be the first thing I would try to sell to see if it went.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm definitely not in any rush to sell my RS5, nor am I done with it. But I'm excited to know that when the day comes that I am going to sell it, it's going to go on one of the auction sites, and I'm excited just to like put on a clinic, like just go all out, max out the photo gallery. Like, I'm gonna send them so much, I'm gonna have to message them and be like, "Hey, I can't upload anymore." And they're gonna be like, "Hey, you're at 300." I'm like, "Well, just figure it out. Make a way to, make it happen." 4 or 5 videos. I'm gonna have like a professional photo shoot with rollers. It's gonna be like the most banging RS5 auction ever, and it's gonna make it into your recap because it's gonna be a record sale someday. Because I'm not gonna settle for anything less, not just because of the sale price and wanting to get top of market when I do sell it, but just like showing people that always say like, "Oh, you know, whatever, like it's only a $25,000 car. Why spend $500 on a detail? Why spend $400 on a photo shoot?" It's like, here's why. Like, don't let the value fool you. It's not just for the exotics.
Yeah, well, if you're trying to sell it in front of your house, you don't want it sitting there dirty and things like that. You want to have the best presentation.
Yeah.
So why not do the same thing for an online auction site? Do your due diligence, clean the car thoroughly, um, treat it like those high end consigners do for like extremely rare Porsche models, where they give the bottom of the car dry ice cleaning
Yeah,
and
yeah.
things like that because people expect them to be pristine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I always use there was a funny example at Cars and Bids when I was there of a Honda Acti, the K truck. And it was a really nice example. It was a blue one that had some like tasteful, very like Japanese cultural appropriate mods. But that's like mm, a $9,000-$10,000 truck on a good day, and it sold for like 23 grand because the guy just went all out for a four-figure car in terms of presentation. And it's like, that's an outlier. It's not going to happen every time you do that for a Honda Acti, obviously, but still proves the point of like, yeah, just give it everything because that's your shot. Like the other thing that I always say with like, especially the headline photos, is like, not only does it have to be clean and in a good setting and in good lighting and good quality photos and all that, but like you have to make it emotional because the auction is emotional, right? It's like you want someone to not only look at the car and be like, okay, all the pictures that I need are here, but like you want them to look at it and be like, damn, I want that now. Like, how do I make this happen, right? Those where you have like the cool roller shots and the sun's behind them or like whatever, right? Some cool like scenic shots.
Yeah, like what I call those model shots. So
Yes.
you have one or two model shots where you treat your car like it's on the runway, and the rest of the time you're honing down into the detail things.
Yeah.
But there's some must be a consigner or a seller in Arizona that typically has these beautiful shots of their car out next to the cactuses and the sunset and all that stuff. So it looks really nice. It's eye catching. That's what you got to get. You got to catch people's eyes.
Yeah, especially on Bring a Trailer when there's, 900 plus auctions live at any one time, and there might be eight more of your generation of car on at the same time. You got to stand out. So you saw that, I'm sure, right? Like they're doing, I guess, like a private sale of like one of the R18 e-trons and an RS5 DTM car,
Yes.
and like
Um,
you get some race cars occasionally, like vintage race cars usually in the auction channels, but never like the modern stuff, right? That's like coming straight from the heritage collection of the brand. So that's pretty cool. I mean, I love motorsports, and I always wonder like, where do those things end up? And what actually happens to them on the market? Like, do they basically just sit away in a garage or in a collection for decades because they're not like going to be used, right? Like, what are your thoughts?
well, what do you call it? The announcement, I guess. It's a sale, not an auction,
Right.
which I thought was interesting at first. So my first thought was who's going to be able to drive this car? Did they call up their ex team drivers and say, Timo, do you want to buy this car? Tom Christensen's already got a few, so you got to look at other guys on the team. Hey, Piro, do you want that car that you drove back in the day, the R18? Um, you know, you don't want to see him sit around in a collection, but when they're now creating this new support mechanism for their car that so if you buy this thing you'll be able to take it out to historic racing maybe or to some track day things if you've got Audi support. um, I wonder if in the back of my mind, the first thing I thought of is, are they trying to build a little motorsports
Like an
presence?
XX program of some sort.
Well, sort of almost like a Porsche Classic to a certain extent, but to get themselves more in the forefront before Formula One starts.
Mm,
Is it a little bit of a marketing ploy? I mean, there's got to be a lot of us that really miss Audi and top level sports car racing. So are they trying to
hmm
gauge people's enthusiasm with this? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that because yeah, like I was talking about this with our last podcast guest about the Formula One entry upcoming, and it's like Audi they usually dominate, right? Like we all remember 10 years ago, it was like you watch ALMS and Le Mans, and it's like, oh yeah, Audi's like you know 10 minutes or miles and miles ahead of everyone in the endurance race. Okay, cool. Who's in second, right? Like that was the expectation. And it's been so long since 2016, I think, since they've been in the top level motorsports. I'm wondering also if they're going to announce. So your point is interesting about F1 because that's really not that far off. But I'm also wondering if now with all the surge of entrants that we're seeing in the new Le Mans hypercar top tier and LMDH and all that stuff here in America, I'm wondering if they're potentially ex- behind the scenes considering re-entering. I mean, doing that and Formula One all at once would be quite an endeavor. Um, but they were a force to be reckoned with in that top level of endurance racing for so many years. And I wonder now that like every brand, every one of their main rivals, short of Mercedes, and even brands like Genesis, are confirming their entries in LMDH for Le Mans in the coming years. So it's like I find it hard to believe Audi's going to sit that out. So I wonder if maybe like them bringing this R18 back into the limelight as like one of their dominant LMP cars is like, hey, like remember when we did this? Like maybe we'll do it again.
They well they said we're going to do it, and then the CEO from like three CEOs ago said no, we're going to do Formula One. So they pulled their hypercar intention and replaced it with Formula One.
Mm,
And that's when a lot of us sports car fans went, "What are you doing?" There was a lot of people that weren't terribly Formula One fans because we never had a presence there. You have to go back decades to find the little bit of Porsche presence that was there. And Porsche said, "No, hey, we're going to try and do it too." And then the ill-fated deal with Red Bull went nowheres. And
hmm
I think it was because Porsche wanted more control, and Red Bull said, "No, no, we're in charge here. Not you guys." So that died right away. And some Formula or the Audi doubled down on Formula One after that. I In today's climate, where they want to be relevant to the cars that are on the market, then I remember seeing some debate about why would they do Formula One then? Where's the relevance to cars today? And that's something that goes all the way back to the rally days when they were doing the Group S, with the ill-fated Group S regulations. They wanted to keep their cars relevant, their rally cars relevant to the production models. So that's something that's ingrained in car manufacturers' marketing: is keep your race cars relevant. Win on Sunday, sell on Monday. So why Formula One? Why not sports cars? Why not hypercars?
Yeah,
It's prestige, I guess.
that's interesting. I actually didn't know. I knew everything about the Porsche discussions and everything you mentioned. I did not know that part about them pulling out or leadership pulling away from the hypercar entry discussions. So that's interesting. Yeah, I wonder. It seems like they were almost like there were two ships passing at the wrong point in time, right? Because they committed to this Formula One entry. I mean, not that Formula One is still incredibly popular, and we've added two more races in this country alone since the explosion of its popularity with Drive to Survive and everything. But they definitely went all in, sort of at the peak of that time. It seems, maybe from a marketing standpoint and such. And now, in the time since then, I almost feel like Hypercar, WEC, and IMSA has like exploded in growth and manufacturer investment beyond what we even expected, right? Because I think going into it, it was like we had Ferrari, Porsche, BMW, Aston Martin had mentioned the Valkyrie was going to come, like Acura and Cadillac were already there, so they were, and Toyota. But Now we're seeing even more, and more keep coming. I mean, just this past week from when we're recording this, McLaren announced they're coming. And McLaren's in every top tier motorsport too. They're in Formula One and IndyCar and all these other things. So I don't know. I don't think it's out of the question yet. We'll see. I find it hard to believe they're going to sit that out because, to your point, it provides a really nice engagement point for the racing fans and the brand fans, but then also, like you said, the trickle down effect of what they put into those cars. Formula One, I almost wonder if it's like they're trying to have both sides of that coin. Like they want to maybe get back into sports car racing for the road car adjacency, but then with Formula One, like we've seen with some of these brands like Aston Martin, Mercedes, and now even Red Bull, making their own reimagined Formula One car for the 1%, track only special stuff, right? I wonder if Audi's like considering a project there too, long term. Not immediately when they enter the sport, of course, but maybe down the road.
Yeah, it's a tough game to get into. Going back to when they said we're in the WRT team out of Belgium that was always dominant in Audi R8 racing. They were perennial winners. Back when the Vantor brothers were driving for them and the Vanderlyn brothers. When Audi said we're coming in to the hypercar content or the market now, to race. WRT went up to LMP2 and raced an LMP2 prototype for a year. And during that year, Audi pulled the plug on the program, and they said, "Okay, fine, we're going back to racing BMWs now in sports cars." But they did keep their hypercar team as well, or their LMP2 car team, I should say. Um, we sort of burned a bridge there. You have to find a good race team to field your hypercar, and creating everything from scratch is tough. So as you said, so many teams are coming in. They're snatching up the good the good drivers, like Genesis, the guys that have already committed to Genesis. Pipo Derani, I think, is one of the drivers they've named that's going to be on there. He was the champion a couple times in IMSA. So, will there be room on the grid? When Le Mans goes to GT3 and hypercar only, with so many more hypercar teams, are we going to have to say, well, we're just going to have a hypercar class now in Le Mans, and leaving the GT3 guys going, hey?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. It's not too far. 2025's race is not too far away, and I was looking at the entry list the other day, and it was like, wow, like it just felt like invigorating seeing that hypercar entry list as heavy as it has been for a long time, since the LMP1 days. And even then it was like basically Audi and Toyota for so many years only. So yeah, that made me think about that too. I was like, man, you got everybody here. No Audi. Would love to see their name back in the mix, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Well,
if Mercedes jumps into it, then since Audi and Mercedes have already been rivals and things in the past, going back to the Silver Arrows days, maybe there's hope.
right, yeah, we'll see. I've been surprised they haven't said anything about it yet either, but who knows? Anyway, well, I wanted to hear more. I didn't even get to your just baseline background with ACNA. How long have you been a member? How many Audis have you owned during that time? And would love to hear just more about your garage.
Sure. Well, my little thing about how I became a writer for the magazine, the contributors column thing, it sort of gives an overview of what my boss telling me to buy a sports car. So that was the, hey, buy a sports car. Well, I couldn't configure a Porsche the way I wanted it for less than $90,000. So the salesman said, "Have you thought of an Audi?" And I said, "No." And he goes, "Let's go next door," because they're always next door to each other, "and let's go look at an S5." And well, that was with the B 8.5. So I thought, well, that's a really nice car. And I waited till the 14 order sheet was out, and I ordered Misano red, black optics, the lunar silver Alcantara seat inserts, Prestige, the layered wood black aluminum. I mean, I decked it out the way I wanted it to, and I had a price in mind that I wanted. And the salesman came back with his price, and I said, "No, here's the price that I want to buy the car for." And he went into a sales manager. He told me, "We have to build this guy this car because it'll be here in December." Right. So how Audi used to have white cars with the red car in front like Rudolph. So when we went to get our car in December, there's our S5 in front of six white other cars. So I thought this is just perfect.
So so
I
you
love this
you
car.
filled a box for them by ordering that car, basically.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and we still have that car. So not long after getting the S5, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember how I got into Audi Club, knowing about it. But I had already been looking at Porsche Club, and I thought, well, there must be an Audi Club or something like that. So I stumbled across Audi Club, and I'm going to join. And the National in 2016 is when really things took off for me because I met people in Georgia, Carolina, Florida, and I thought, wow, these people are just great. And they said, you got to do Quattro de Mayo. You got to come for that. So I got into Quattro de Mayo, and then start looking through the Quattro Quarterly, and I see, hey, there's this thing called One Lap of Ohio. I want to go do that, and so I just sort of went all heads in, head first with getting into the club, and at the same time I've had a Q5. I've had two of those actually. We got a base TT, and my wife couldn't keep up with me in the S5 because we put a stage 1 APR tune on that thing. So we had to go to get TTRS, of course, to replace that. And then, so we've had six total Audis, and I still have three of them in the driveway. And then I have a Macan S that sits outside too. So, so
Nice.
that's my current stable right now.
Very cool. All right. Well, I want to ask you the hard question we always ask our guests here. You got to pick three dream cars in your garage. Three Audi dream cars. Any time frame, any market, international, domestic, whatever it may be, as impractical or as practical as you want. Any idea what those would be?
I thought about this. So there's no rules,
No
right?
rules. No rules on anything. No holds barred.
Car number one, the Auto Union Type 52.
Oh wow, the one that
Yeah,
they
I want.
just recently brought out at
Yes, I
Goodwood,
want
yeah.
one of none. Yes, I love that Art Deco type styling on that thing. It just looks so retro badass. I love it. And with a V16 sitting behind you, oh my God, it's like the
Yeah.
R8 guys be drooling if they heard that.
A fully encased V16 of a car of which you can quite literally just do one thing with, but yeah, go for it.
Yeah. And with the three seats, the McLaren guys be
Oh
going,
yeah, you got the F1 style seating.
yeah. Audi Union thought of that first, McLaren. Sorry, yeah. Okay, so car number two, um, based on what I've seen in the auctions recently, I'd want a 2015 R8 V10 with a six-speed with an exclusive paint and maybe even the Audi exclusive interior. If they did any of those, I'm not quite sure. I don't remember if I've seen one with an Audi exclusive interior. And then I would slap on a VF Engineering supercharger on top of that because I love my superchargers. And I don't think I'd ever sell it. That would be the car.
So final model year of the first gen, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The little bit of facelift on there. I love that. I love the deeper single frame grille from that era
Yeah.
until then they shortened them up and then when the
Yeah.
refresh. So I love that deep single frame. And car number three, which I hope we actually get here in America, I want a European spec RS4 Avant. So because the RS6s are nice, but that's a big car,
Hmm.
and I want just a little bit downsize, like an 8 platform, or the 9, but the B platform, I should say. I love the twin turbo, the 2.9 liter twin turbo. I've got that in my Macan S, and I just love that the way the engine works. And it'd have to have an S-tronic in it, not a Tiptronic. So I think that's probably a bit of a dream there because I think those all have the 8-speed Tiptronics in them. And I think that car would have to be Sonoma Green with carbon optics with a RS design interior in red.
All right. Specific taste. I'm actually not familiar. What is carbon optics? Basically, just everything that's black is carbon fiber. Did they offer that on a select few models?
I'm not sure, but the carbon optics package on other models is like the matte carbon fiber exterior.
Okay.
So you can get that on I think the RS5s, you can get a matte carbon optic on that. So the R8s, you can get a matte carbon fiber. They did an RS5 limited edition in a Scary blue and something else that had matte carbon fiber inside and out. So they called it a carbon optics package because it just looks so cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I wasn't familiar with that one. But yeah, I agree with you on the Avants. I love all the Avants, every generation of the RS4 Avant, but I think it was the one they just revealed earlier this year, if I recall, the 25th year anniversary RS4 Avant in Vegas yellow from the B9, like the final B9 car. Euro only, of course, or rest of the world, but exceptional. Well, in 25 years, I'll get the 25-year anniversary car and import it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully, now that we've re-architected the numbering system,
Yeah.
hopefully we get
Hopefully we
an
still have a
RS.
future of being able to import this stuff.
Well, I want a new one. I want a new RS5 Avant to come to America. Not just the sedan
Yeah.
or the Sportback. I want an Avant.
Yeah, that'll be cool. Who knows? That could be revealed by the time this episode goes up. But yeah, that's due to show up soon. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's so much wagon activity now with the M5 touring is coming. There's certainly going to be another E63 wagon at some point. M3 touring is apparently exploding in sales over in Europe. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm wondering, are BMW and Audi going to look at what's happening there and here and be like, maybe we should give the RS5 Avant or the M3 touring a spin? We can only hope.
Yeah, I mean a little bit down in price point from the RS6, would be nice. The RS6 is a nice car, but 150K.
Yeah, fully optioned up RS6 performance is like you're knocking on 911 territory.
Yeah, yeah, and if that's your daily, oh, that's an expensive daily.
Yeah, indeed. Cool, man. All right, well, it was great to have you on, Steve. I'll let you get going, but it's great chat, and thanks for joining us for another episode of All Wheel Driven. Anything you want to plug for future content that you have coming up for the club and future magazine episode or magazine issues or anything like that?
No, just keep an eye on the auction watch recaps. What I try to do in those is pick models, like I said before, that are either seem to be up for sale more or suddenly got popular, and then in the listings afterwards, I try to pick on things that sold for either a lot of money, like surprisingly, like wow, that did good at auction, or like show that things aren't going good at auction. Sort of dichotomy of things. So I weed through and try to pick stuff out there, and I'll continue on with a couple more Silver Arrow stories until Audi takes the grid in 2026. Hopefully, we see really good results right away. But the way Sauber's going today, we don't quite have that feeling. But there's always hope.
Yeah, TBD. Very cool. All right. Well, yeah. Be sure to keep an eye out for the auction watches on the ACNA blog and website, and future issues of Quattro magazine for club members will have Steve's Audi auction recap, market recap in there for all your reading pleasure. But anyway, thanks again, Steve.
Thanks for having me.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of All Wheel Driven. Please consider giving our show a rating, subscribe for future episodes, and email us your feedback at media@audiclubna.org. Be sure to check the show description for a link to submit your questions or express interest in joining future episodes of All Wheel Driven to share your Audi story with our community. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.